front door slammed shut in the bright cold of Christmas morning, the sound echoing louder than the church bells down the street. And in that moment, Arthur Bell realized he had nowhere left to go. Snow glittered under the daytime sun, children laughed somewhere nearby, and the smell of holiday meals drifted through the air. But Arthur stood on the porch with a trembling hand, his small suitcase resting at his feet, his chest tight from more than just his illness. Behind that door was the house he had paid for, the home where he had raised his daughter, and the place he thought he would spend his last Christmas. Instead, he was being sent away like an unwanted package, discarded on the most hopeful day of the year. If stories of kindness, forgiveness, and second chances still mean something to you, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Midnight Tales. Your support keeps stories like this alive, and your belief in compassion makes all the difference. Arthur Bell was 68 years old, and sick in ways doctors could measure, and in ways they could not. His lungs were weak, his heart unreliable, and his body tired from decades of factory work that had paid the bills but taken its toll. Since the death of his wife Miriam, his world had narrowed to routines and memories, and eventually to the small upstairs bedroom in his daughter Marissa's house. Marissa had once been a gentle child who clung to his leg when thunderstorms rattled the windows, but adulthood had hardened her, sharpened her patience into something brittle. Stress had become her constant companion, and resentment crept in quietly, disguised as exhaustion. That Christmas morning unfolded in full daylight, with sunlight bouncing off fresh snow and illuminating the decorations Marissa had hung so carefully for the neighbors to admire. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and cinnamon, but warmth did not reach Arthur's room. Marissa stood firm in her decision, telling herself she was doing what she had to do, convincing herself that caring for a sick parent was too much, that her life had stalled because of him. When Arthur slowly made his way downstairs, struggling to breathe, hoping for a quiet breakfast together, he instead found finality waiting for him. The suitcase by the door said everything. No shouting was needed. The cold resolve in Marissa's eyes cut deeper than any raised voice. Arthur stepped outside in the clear daytime air, the sky impossibly blue, the world moving on without him. Each step down the porch felt heavier than the last. He told himself not to cry. Not here. Not on Christmas. He picked up his old suitcase, the leather worn thin from years of use, and began walking down the street. Cars passed, families waved at each other, and no one noticed the old man coughing softly as he leaned against a fence to catch his breath. Pride kept him moving, even when his legs threatened to give out. By early afternoon, Arthur found himself sitting on a bench near a small town square, sunlight warming his face just enough to ease the chill. He watched people come and go, their arms full of gifts and food, their laughter sharp and bright. Memories washed over him, of Christmas mornings spent assembling toys, of Marissa running toward him with messy hair and wide smiles, of promises made silently to always protect her. He wondered where he had failed, how love could turn into inconvenience so easily. What Arthur didn't know was that someone was watching him. A woman named Eleanor Finch, who ran a modest legal aid office nearby, had stepped out to enjoy the winter sun during her lunch break. She noticed Arthur's labored breathing, the way his hands shook as he tried to sip water from a small bottle. There was something dignified about him, something broken, but unbowed. Eleanor approached, offering help without pity, and Arthur, too tired to refuse, accepted a ride to a nearby clinic. The hours that followed quietly shifted the course of several lives. Doctors examined Arthur and discovered his condition had worsened dangerously. He was admitted for observation, given oxygen, and for the first time that day, allowed himself to rest. Eleanor stayed longer than she planned, making calls, arranging temporary care, and listening to Arthur's story with a heavy heart. By the time evening approached, sunlight fading but still present through large windows, she had made a decision that came from a place of deep conviction rather than obligation. Meanwhile, back at the decorated house, Marissa moved through the day like a ghost. The silence felt wrong. The untouched plate she had set out of habit stared back at her. Neighbors stopped by with smiles and greetings, and she smiled back, but unease gnawed at her. As daylight softened into late afternoon, her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and carried news that landed like a blow. Her father was hospitalized. His condition was serious. He had been found alone on a bench, sick and vulnerable. Shock rushed through Marissa, followed by something sharp and unfamiliar that twisted her stomach. Guilt, panic, fear. She drove to the clinic with shaking hands, the cheerful decorations along the road suddenly mocking her. When she arrived, daylight still filtered through the windows, illuminating Arthur's pale face as he lay connected to machines. He looked smaller, fragile in a way she had never allowed herself to see. The reality of what she had done settled heavily on her chest. Arthur opened his eyes and saw his daughter standing there, tears streaking her face. He did not turn away. He did not scold. He simply looked at her with the same quiet sadness he had carried all day. In that look was love untouched by rejection, forgiveness unspoken, but present. Marissa broke down, overwhelmed by regret, realizing too late that the burden she thought she was carrying was nothing compared to the one she had placed on him. If this story is reaching something deep inside you right now, if it's making you reflect on your own choices and relationships, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps spread messages of compassion to hearts that may need it most today. Over the next few days, Arthur's condition stabilized. Eleanor helped arrange in-home care and guided Marissa through resources she never knew existed. More importantly, Marissa changed. She listened. She slowed down. She learned what it meant to care, not out of duty, but out of love. Christmas passed, but its lesson remained, brighter than any decoration. Before the ending, a special request from us at Midnight Tales. Please comment below with one word that this story made you feel. Your words matter, and they remind others they are not alone. On a clear daytime morning weeks later, Arthur sat by a sunny window, warmth on his face, Marissa beside him holding his hand. The world outside moved on, but inside that room, something had been repaired. Christmas had come and gone, but forgiveness had stayed. And in its quiet presence, both father and daughter found a second chance they would never again take for granted.